This will be the July 21st, 2022 City of Ashland Transportation Commission meeting. I would like to start off by saying thank you, Liz, for all the hard work you do on the minutes, though we can't approve them today or review them today. But thank you, Liz, for the work that you do. We do appreciate it. Any other announcements? Linda, you want to talk about what we did last night?
I think
Sure.
we have that on the agenda.
So, yeah.
I can cover it when we get down to informational, or
Good.
Linda and I can cover it.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, there it is. I didn't see that. Thank you, Scott. So besides that, do we have any quote unquote announcements?
We do have the two people who registered for public comment here. So when we get to that, we can bring in Daniel and Dave.
Are these from Kestrel? They're not the B Street people.
Yeah, from Kestrel. I didn't
Okay.
have anybody register for B Street previously, but we have a few people out in the audience.
Okay.
Okay, so we can't do the consent agenda, so we'll go right on to the public forum then, Scott.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring in Daniel and David.
Hi, my name's Dan. Dan Giroux. I'm president of the Julian Square Garden Club Homeowners Association. There's 9 of us in a group of townhouses off of Plum Ridge Drive, and we are up against the field here for the new KDA development at Kestrel Park. And Dave, are you there?
I'm here, and I'm Dave Runkle, and I live across the alleyway from Dan. I live in the Mountain Meadows, and before we get to what brought us here tonight, we want to thank Scott and the Streets Department and the Commission for installing those fancy flashing stop signs on Mountain Avenue at Fair Oaks Drive. You may not know, after the regular stop signs were installed a couple months ago, a Mountain Meadows resident who stopped her car before pulling out on the mountain was injured. Their car was totaled by a speeding driver who didn't stop there. And the addition of those solar-powered flashing red lights works, and traffic now stops on Mountain Avenue. But the purpose of our being here tonight is we want to raise what we and more than 60 others in our communities believe is a potential serious transportation issue in our North Mountain Avenue communities. In the past year, the KDA development has built or is building 15 single-family houses at the foot of the hill below our homes. It also has already completed 28 smaller affordable homes on the south side of the property. 2 weeks ago, the company outlined plans to build 48 additional smaller housing units on the hillside. And all of this is going on west of Plum Ridge Drive and south of Fair Oaks Drive, with severely limited access and egress. Because this development is in an out-of-way pocket of land without commercial property, except for a recently opened coffee shop, which we hope you can come by and take a look at. And it's far away from any public transport. Those occupying these units most likely are going to need to have at least one vehicle. But few streets or alleys that exist or planned are narrow, making access for fire trucks, emergency vehicles, ecology, and delivery vans difficult. And most critically, potentially difficult for residents to safely leave in the event of an emergency evacuation. Dan, do you want to add?
Yeah, Dave and I started this with a conversation, the two of us as neighbors, and so we wrote this letter together and contacted people around the neighborhood that would be affected by it, because it really stuck out to us that that in case of an emergency, we were in a tight spot. So more than 60 of our neighbors in Mountain Meadows and Julian Square signed letters to Mr. Molnar of the Community Development Department and Planning Commission, objecting to the proposed density of the new development. The letter states, quote, "In our view, KDA's current plans for this hillside would create a densely populated area that would create hazardous and possibly life-threatening conditions. Of greatest concern is the traffic bottleneck that would result from increased population and inadequate evacuation outlets. Lessons learned from the Alameda fire. The streets, the exit streets just get reduced down to a very limited number of them. And it's a scary thing to look at and to comprehend. At a minimum, we believe a traffic safety study should be conducted as well as an environmental impact study. KDA, we believe, should pay for these studies, but with the city's involvement in selecting the consultants. This is where the expertise and the opinion of the Transportation Commission is needed. In your mission statement, you support moving toward a less auto-dependent community. This development would create 76 small auto-dependent housing units, some with as little as 376 square feet of living space, along with another 15 or so larger single-family houses where residents would likely have 2 or more vehicles. Earlier plans for this property had a much smaller footprint, less of a dense population, and a decreased risk level. But we have no objection to KDA building on the hillside. We like their quality of homes, but we're asking you to look into the plans, support traffic and environmental studies, and join us in urging the Community Development Department and the Planning Commission to reject the current proposal based primarily on transportation concerns. We'd be pleased to have you guys up here to look at the situation. It's we have the top of the hill here, look down at this development encroaching on us, and it's you can see the traffic is to us, it is a scary prospect. I'm not a civil engineer. I don't have the formula for what the density of population and automobiles for an emergency evacuation. I don't know that formula, but it would be great to have a traffic study done because it's frankly, it's frightening. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daniel and David. And just for public record, again, this is a practice session. This is not an actual meeting.
Oh,
So we have to say that for legalities.
okay.
But we do appreciate what you have to say, and we can sit there and talk about it. And that's what we're going to do today. One thing that I could suggest for the two of you is to contact the city and ask them about the East Nevada Street Bridge. Because if you are concerned about the egress to and from that area, at one point in time, the city was going to put a bridge across East Nevada over Bear Creek for egress. So you might want to approach the city about that again and bring that subject back up.
Yeah,
that's a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Linda?
The other thing I want to mention is that normally this, we do not consider anything except type 3 planning actions. And I'm not sure that this qualifies under that. This has been kind of a bugaboo for the Transportation Commission and working with the Planning Commission, because these problems often come up to us after the fact. So I'm really glad that you came to us today with this. But I'm not sure that it is our responsibility or a type 3 planning action that we would even consider.
If I could just make a comment, when we had a briefing by Mr. Knox about the project, he said they would be needing a variance from the city in order to proceed with this project, and so that's a point at which we will certainly make a formal objection at that time. And I just want to note that the idea of a traffic study was not something that we had originally thought about. Suggested by another Mountain Meadows resident whose husband, whose late husband worked for the Federal Highway Administration. And she said that she understands that a traffic safety study is a normal part of any project, like maybe not of this size, but of projects. And I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. Yeah.
Arguably so. I don't know if Paula Hyatt is here. She is also the liaison with the Planning Commission, and I don't know if she could add any insight to this question.
Linda, thank you. And I would just say that this would be something that I can take to Bill Molnar, or if Mr. Runkle or Mr. DeRoe would like to, we can absolutely do that. But I do think that it's something that would need to raise to the level of the Planning Commission for all the reasons you stated.
We have sent you a copy, Counselor, we sent you a copy of the letter we gave to Mr. Molnar and addressed it to all members of the Planning Commission. And you may hear us make a similar presentation the next Planning Commission meeting is.
Absolutely. The next study session is next Tuesday.
Yep.
And you can absolutely apply or register for the public forum.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Dan and Daniel, or Daniel and David, thank you so much for reaching out to us. We do appreciate it. And we do take these matters seriously, and we really do like to engage with the public.
Thank
So
you.
thank you again for coming to the meeting, to this
Yeah,
quote unquote meeting today.
All
thank
right.
you very much. And we'll keep our eye on it from here on out too.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Scott, can we talk about Candy Barnhill's letter? I think that would be public testimony, correct? Or public?
Yes.
Anybody get a chance to go through there? The only thing that I noticed is when I looked at Google Maps and Apple Maps and Bing Maps, the area that the person's referring to across the street from 950, there's no cars in the parking lot on any of those photos. So that's pretty interesting. They have 3 different companies taking photos, and as the person states in the letter, there was no vehicles parked there. If you go just down the street, I forget the name of the court that's down there that has a parking area down there, it was pretty full in all the photos with different cars. So I am curious to see what's up with that. Scott, do you have any point or viewpoint on this?
So our guys went down there and they took a look at that area. And what I remember Chuck telling me, they were going to put one sign of no parking with the arrow near the intersection location to make it a little bit clearer through that corridor, because there was only 2 signs through that whole stretch. Let me pull this up. Let's see if I can do this here.
I didn't quite understand you, Mark. Is this the Cypress Loop?
Yes, excuse me. I'm so sorry, Joe. The Cypress Point.
No,
Loop.
I just didn't catch it. I was spaced out for a second there.
Yeah, I was referring to Candy Barnhill's letter. So I did go
Mhm.
on the maps, but there is, maybe Scott can show it. Yeah, so right about where his cursor is, right above there is a parking lot. And that's one of the things we're talking about here, that there don't seem very many parking there in those bays. And from all the photos that I could find and everything else I could find, the documentation shows that that doesn't get used. Now, if you go to Augusta Court, every photo I could find has got vehicles there. But even for me, I remember in the past driving through there, I went to a yard sale and I got complained to I was parking on the wrong side of the street. So maybe that has something to do with it.
I think from what I remember, Chuck telling me that it was just, it appeared to him that there was a lack of signage to control the no parking on the one side of the street, or parking in bays only. And I believe they added a sign or 2. But I'd
Okay.
have to go back and dig that up.
Well, based upon the experience outside my house, people park right in front of the sign, on top of the sign. So I don't think the signs make that much difference if people want to park. As long as we don't have the person power and the police department to write tickets everywhere, I think people are just going to park. But doesn't hurt to have more signs.
Yes, and if there is an accident, they can sit there and point to the sign and I think, even though there's no fault, but in Oregon's no fault, but you can at least have some documentation for your insurance company. So with that, nobody else in public forum, Scott?
No.
Okay, so crash report. It was nice to see there were no bike and ped accidents this last month. But seems like we still have the same accidents in the same areas. Joe, come on, Joe. We can't have an accident report go by without you saying something. You're muted.
I didn't anticipate we were going to talk about any of this stuff. I thought we were just going to get reports from Scott. So I haven't studied this, I must say.
Shame on you.
I'm sure there's a rear end that didn't get a ticket on here.
Yeah, I thought we took the tickets off. No, they're on there.
There's
No,
a lot of
there's still-
cited this time. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, Joe, most people got a ticket on this one.
Yeah,
Well, I see that somebody got a ticket for knocking over a sign. That's good.
and in a business parking lot.
Well, but here's driver failed to stop an intersection and ran across median into a parked vehicle. No citation. Sometimes they're not even there, but
But again, we got more DUIs again this month.
In the
Yeah.
same spot. Sure, wish Steve was around to give us the lowdown. Someday.
Yeah. And with that, Scott, I will turn it over to you for B Street.
Okay. So since we don't have a quorum and we're not taking any actions, or we can't do any actions, deliberation, any of that is part of this meeting. It's informational, just an update again, as I sent out my email. So Liz will be taking notes and we'll be posting those notes to the website. As part of this, just a quick update, we received a traffic calming application from residents along B Street and the B Street corridor. And I have requested that as time allows, our staff go out there and start the traffic collection process so we can get speed and volume. We'll try to get it in a couple locations along B Street as part of that process, and we'll bring that data back to the commission at a future date. My preference would probably be to collect the data once school starts, but that way we get the biggest pickup for traffic and volume like we talk about and start that process. So, and that, as you guys somewhat mildly know, we are suffering a staffing shortage on my end of the game again. So we have a couple of the people who do this stuff are kind of booked up doing other work. So I kind of left it to them to schedule it, but we will get that data and bring it back and we'll go through the scoring process. The one thing that was interesting that frankly I had never seen before was that B Street transportation plan. When that was referenced in the letter, I was able to actually find a copy of it. And that is part of your packet for reference in the future. And so I think the other thing I'll mention too as part of this, and until we get the data and actually go through the scoring and detail next steps, is that B Street is classified as a bike boulevard in the transportation system plan, the current one. And as we've talked about in the past, you know, having that 20-mile-an-hour posting for a bike boulevard is reliant on some rules and regulations in the code. And one of them is 3,000 ADT traffic count. And I would suspect through the corridor, we would still see under that 3,000 ADT along B Street, but we might be pushing it in some spots. So that's something that we'll have to definitely look at as part of that. In another circumstance where we're talking about a bike boulevard in a different nature on a higher volume street, we're actually talking about bike lanes or other bike facility improvements, not just share O's and share the road signs. So that'll be something that we'll be looking at once we get the data collected as part of that. So really, the next steps are for us just to get out there and collect the speed and volume, put the accident report information together. And I'm sure Mark has probably already looked at the corridor for the accident reports. So we'll compile all that data and get that back to the group. The one thing, and Linda, you might know, which would be helpful, there wasn't a point of contact for all of the petitioners. So it'd be nice to have a point of contact that I could communicate with.
Yeah,
There
I
is-
think that Peter
there-
Tardif and Peter Tardif and Mari Tardif would be the contact, and they're there in the audience there.
Okay, yeah, I
If
see
you
a
wanna, if you wanna bring them in,
couple
bring
people.
Peter in.
You know, I don't know if we should, based on the meeting, and take public comment until we get to the, until we have a real meeting, as part of that, and actually have the data for them, is as a discussion, and have them be participatory in the discussion. So if they're the people that I can notice to get the other people in the neighborhood together, that would be great, and I can take that and let them know.
Yeah, Peter, could you give the thumbs up on that? Thank Pete,
Okay.
did he?
Yep, I saw a flash, I think. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, and everyone knows where to find me generally, so I'm not that difficult to track down.
he's everywhere. He's every man and everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just would like to say that I'm glad that you, B Street neighbors got together, 21 people on the petition got together and to try to produce some traffic calming and on their street, and I think it's great.
And the other thing I'll say associated with that is, you know, when we look at the corridor past accidents and traffic volumes and speeds, that I also want to look at intersection control. You know, we've had angle crashes, I know, at 4th Street. We've had angle crashes at 8th Street. Once you pass the stop at 2nd, there's no stop control or any other measures until you get to B Street. So I think part of the look is to look at that overall corridor in total, especially if we're talking a bicycle boulevard, because it's referenced in the TSP. Oak to Mountain is part of that project link. So we want to, I don't think we just want to limit ourselves to, you know, the first few blocks. I think we
Sure.
want to look at the whole corridor as
Yeah.
part of that whole process.
And I think that's been our intent for quite a while, that and the residential parking permit program and everything else that came out in that fantastic study that was done in '99. You know, that was fascinating. And
Yeah, and-
it's not the only study that was done during there that was really good. The railroad study in 2000, great. Lots of public involvement, you know, and thanks for getting it off the shelf.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through it. I've been a little bit preoccupied here for a little bit. But I'm glad I found it, and so I have it in the file now to go through, because as I've talked to you guys about, I like to dig into some of that historic document because it sets the baseline for how we got to this point today.
Yeah.
So it is useful information, and there's probably some really good things in there that can be looked at moving forward as part of a corridor plan for improvement.
Mhm.
And Scott, you were right that I went ahead and looked at all the accidents. And actually, what really is surprising is the area right by Emmerich. It's not surprising because it's really narrow, has the most amount of accidents on B Street. So that would be from quote unquote 9th Street to Emmerich has the most amount of accidents. And that's because it's really narrow.
Really
And
narrow.
people have that slight little jig to it, whatever it is. And then the next section would be 6 to 8, has a lot of accidents, more than 4th or 5th, by the way. So it's really funny where the road narrows. I think it's 4th Street it narrows or the 5th Street it narrows.
After 5th Street.
So after 5th Street's where all your accidents happen.
Yeah.
From 5th Street to Emmerich, basically, is where all your accidents are. And there's quite a few, over 50.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay.
So you know if it's accidents, I'm gonna look at it. Oh,
So that's what I have for B Street. You know, it'll be up in the future, and we'll bring that back, and we'll get some of the residents here to provide their viewpoint and comment as part of a process.
look forward to that. And again, that was some really good documentation there, Scott. I did actually read most of it, and I was pretty impressed. Now, Joe might remember that document. I don't ever remember seeing anything like that before through all the stuff we've gone through. So I was really excited to see that.
That was
So,
way before my time.
well, you're the old curmudgeon. Come on now.
I'm not neither that old
99.
nor that curmudgeonly, so.
99. Was the bike parking committee, when did that form? Because I think that was after 99, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it 2000 to 2008? Or
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it was before the 2012 TSP update. Anyway, it's just historical perspective is always interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on our next one, and I'm glad that the Dean's here tonight because I wanted to ask him a question about something. So the near miss web application, we could talk about that and see where we're at with that, Scott.
So our next steps, kind of based on that conversation that came out of last month's meeting, were to, and I haven't had a chance to do it yet. I have it all printed out and ready to walk through, but look at a couple of the components that we think might be redundant in the survey information. I know Joe mentioned a couple components that appear to be redundant in the two different main bodied sections. So I was going to walk through that and then make my recommendations for which portions should potentially be eliminated, if any. And also we're adding in the accommodation statement about if you need assistance in filling out the form, please contact Public Works. So we'll add that up on the top header line. And then if you guys agree at the next meeting that what we have is something that's ready to go live, then we'll start putting it out live. And you know, as Adam said, he will help push that out through his channels, and you know, you guys can help push it out through your channels, and Linda through the Climate Collaborative and the Streets for Everyone, and you know, so we'll get that out there, and we'll start realizing some data capture on that. And I would suspect, you know, what I would think is give it 2 to 4 months, and you know, collect all the data, and then we'll do a quarterly report on what we're starting to see and collect. I'm going to make that just a standalone agenda item, so we can see what we're getting, what it looks like, and start putting that mapped system together, just like we do the crash reports for the group.
I just wanted to ask them from our Rogue Valley Transportation District. You saw this last month when you came to our meeting, a near miss web allocation. How do you think, I mean, do your drivers see these things on a regular basis?
I think they do. Yeah, I hear about it. I'm not directly involved in the operation side, but whenever I'm over there, yeah, we hear about those things. And, you know, we put memos out if there's particularly, you know, egregious situations of things happening, or if there's particular areas where there's like, it's more prone to have accidents or more prone to have close calls. So yeah, I know our drivers are noticing, you know, things throughout the route for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I don't want to think I'm crazy and it's only my imagination, but I figured the bus drivers have to see a lot of stuff that most of us don't really want to see. And they probably have some heart attacks left, right, and center.
Yeah, there's definitely stories out there for sure.
So, but there's no place for them to report it in it, like on a daily basis or anything. So, is there? Adam?
There's traffic accident reports, and there's reports they can fill out at the end of their shift that's retained internally for our purposes. So we do keep a track of some of that stuff. I don't know how we, you know, of course, if there's an accident, we file those and we have records of those, but yeah.
But not near misses, like.
Not near misses, no.
Right.
No.
I think it'll be a good complement to your data too. So
Absolutely.
great.
And as Scott mentioned, I'm happy to get that out to our passengers. We have good connections with, we do several programs at SAU and other folks in Ashland, so I'm happy to get that out to our communication channels.
Great.
We look forward to it.
Yeah.
And then thank you for being here in our roundtable discussion tonight, our unofficial meeting. Now this is going to be the next fun one. Scott's favorite topic, Faith Street.
So
Faith Avenue.
we had a neighborhood meeting out there last Wednesday afternoon. How 8 to 10 people were out there, I believe,
Yeah,
from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I gave them the little memo breakdown that I put in the packet as part of traffic calming improvements. And I walked through kind of what I expected as a phased approach for changing and improving Faith Street and things that we've already talked about, you know, converting it to a bike boulevard, doing some signage improvements, striping improvements, and then looking at the traffic circles at Wine and May as part of a process, you know. So I outlined a few different things. I was able to find some design standards that other communities use for traffic circles. It's always nice to find and plagiarize what other jurisdictions are doing and have installed. And so I found some design standards. I think the traffic circles are a good idea and can work well out there. My one concern is at the intersection of Wine, since it's not a four-way intersection like May, the traffic circle might be a traffic ellipse as part of how we lay it out. And we talked about doing a pilot out there using kind of barrels or rubber curbs and some signage and striping out there as a pilot. And then we talked about after the fact going and collecting data and seeing what was happening out there. And then getting some feedback from the residents, what they think of it. We also talked, and we're going to generate a door hanger of talking about traffic calming and traffic safety. And the whole group will take those, and they are going to lead the charge and go door to door and give them to all the neighbors. And we talked along Wine Street and Glendale and May. So they want to canvas essentially that whole area and just make people aware of the issues and their concerns. So I think it was a good, productive meeting, and I know they're happy to see some things change. I actually believe there was 2 signs out there already posted at 25, and I think our street crew has already changed those to 20. They will be doing additional signage along the corridor at a few strategic places. And they will also be putting ground-based 20-mile-an-hour stencils at the entrance from each side there as kind of our first step. And hopefully at some point here, we'll get to pilot the traffic circles and collect that data and have kind of another powwow session with the group and get some feedback. I hope to have the door hanger notification prepped, drafted, and sent to them for comment next week. And then once we get the green light on that, we will let them have the door hangers and they can canvas. And then the other thing is Public Works is going to order some more of the yard signs. And I think we're going to try to get a bunch of the drive like your kids live here instead of the other signs, and see about handing a few of those out because they were interested in putting those in their yard. And usually we hand out a few of those to interested parties to put in their yards as well. And then we'll rotate the speed trailer and the reader boards through there again as well moving forward. So I think we have a pretty good action plan to keep doing stuff and phasing improvements through Faith Avenue. And I don't know, I'll turn it over, Linda, if you want to add anything as well.
I just was contacted by Joni, one of the neighbors there, and they're very happy that the 20-mile-per-hour signs are going up. They were really happy that we came, and they're finally getting something done, and they're ecstatic. And they're all working together to do it as well in being able to canvass the neighborhood and make it, clear. So it's a good plan. They've been waiting a long time. I was just reading, at 2007, they kind of got shoved to the side, so it's bringing up the traffic calming, and so they're back again. Their persistence has paid off, and they're real happy about it.
Is
And I
there any
think they're the
chance?
expectation and example for what other neighborhoods can follow when you enter into this program.
That's right.
Yep.
Did you guys look at redoing the in loving memory sign of the child who died there?
We did not discuss that.
Because I know when I see signs like that, it really affects me and how I drive and stuff like that. Because every time I see Lowe's sign out there on Siskiyou, I slow down.
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Linda and Scott, for doing that. I think we can skip over the task list because we can't really do anything. So, what's after the task list? I forgot.
The High Street cross traffic. So at the
Yeah.
last meeting, that was public comment from an individual up there in that area, was interested in having the cross traffic placard, do not stop. And so we went out there, our street department went out there and they popped those placards up. And I think I threw a couple pictures of them in your packet. So we can check that box. We've done that one, is part of our diligence.
Glad you got the deer in there in the picture. That was great.
The rats with ears are everywhere.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so we can go to last night's public meeting, the traffic calming program, public outreach, how to calm your street webinar. It was last night. It looked like we had 22 participants, I believe.
Uh-huh.
I
I'll
think
turn
so.
this over to Scott and Linda.
So I was invited to attend a meeting where Linda presented the traffic calming program through the Ashland Climate Collaborative. Am I saying that right, Linda?
Yes, yes.
And they were doing a presentation on traffic calming, but also on
The Streets for Everyone.
Streets for Everyone.
Action team and
Yeah,
what we're doing.
So there's a group of volunteers who are banding together to focus policy direction on the Streets for Everyone, and they're being led by another RVTD employee, Mike Verger, who lives in Ashland. And so it was a combination presentation. Linda presented the traffic calming program and the overview and things, had the phasing approach and what we look at, and the petition approach, phase 1 and phase 2. And different types of improvements. And then I just added a couple cents after Linda's presentation. And then Mike talked about the Streets for Everyone and how we're looking at expanding and improving for all modes and all users, biking, walking, rolling is part of that. And so Mike was also there at Faith Avenue, even though he doesn't live there. He was participatory in that meeting. And he's definitely interested in learning more about what we do. And we really talked, I think, a lot about the transportation system plan and people participating in the public comment and portion of that, and bringing their thoughts and ideas to the table once we start the transportation system plan update. So I thought it went really well. I thought there was a few good questions. And I'm glad Mark was there to answer the data question that came up that I couldn't answer off the top of my head. And yeah, so I thought it went pretty good.
Yeah. I'm glad we got the traffic calming program out there. So I think it was a good collaboration.
Yeah, and the one question that was brought up was a person in the audience asked if they didn't live on Walker Street, but they feel that Walker Street's a problem and should be traffic calming. could they fill out the application for Walker Street? So that was a very interesting question that was brought up in last night's meeting. I forget how it was answered. I was trying to do something else, so I forgot that one, but that
Yeah,
was a very interesting question.
My general response was it was developed for people along that corridor to petition. What I think I said is if there was safety concerns, because I think she mentioned signage and cones in the bike lane
Yeah.
near that location. If there's other overriding safety concerns, to contact me and that we would look at that. I know Officer McLennan and I have talked about Walker Avenue above the boulevard a couple times because he's received complaints from speeding, because that is a very wide stretch of road downhill to the signal. We put the speed trailer out there a couple times since we've received it, and he's talked to people along there, telling them to try to obtain the signatures and petition, and to this day we still haven't received anything from the residents along Walker.
Right. You know, we do have, I'll bring it up and then I'll get called on it probably, but the Walker Festival Street is still a CIP project, which would which would change Walker Street in that area. But just another one of those CIPs that hang out.
I think that's between Siskiyou and Ashland Street. I don't think it goes up above Siskiyou.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're right.
Yeah, I think it basically terminates the through and makes it more of a plaza type area. Yeah. I can pull that out of the TSP and send it, or you guys can look at it in the TSP, but I think Joe is correct that it's more of a plaza type application between that area.
Yeah. Which is probably a moot point because now the Tuesday market's in that area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remember, there's lots of stuff in the TSP that's never going to get built.
I know. I know.
And maybe never should get built.
I keep hoping, Joe. I keep hoping. Okay.
I'm trying to find the sidewalks, but I thought that one had a sidewalk. It ends at Siskiyou, Joe, you're correct.
Okay.
It's East Main to Siskiyou. Is where the work is going to be done. And then between Oregon Street to Woodland Drive.
Huh, up that far.
That's not the plaza. That's not the plaza that Linda was talking
That's
about.
not
I
the
think that's
festival.
sidewalks or something.
That's
like
sidewalks.
that.
Yeah.
That's the capital improvement project. I can find for that real
It's
quickly.
special.
Oh, for the sidewalk connection, because there's not sidewalk above Oregon.
No.
Okay.
It's intermittent. There's a couple stretches, but there's not a continuous connection to Woodland. Yep.
I was just quickly looking at CIPs for the area because I haven't broken down in my book by sections.
Yeah.
I'm a little nerd. So now we can actually have some fun because we can now have an open discussion of anything we want to. So that would be Joe, you can bring up any subject and I can bring up any subject.
I haven't heard anything from Corinne yet.
She's there.
Hi, I had to use a different phone because mine doesn't stay on.
Good to hear your voice.
Okay. I have a question for Scott, but I don't know if this is the time to bring it up or not. It's about the ADA stuff that's going on. Are you guys all done talking about everything else?
All right. This is all free time.
What?
Go for it. It's all free time. Go ahead, Corinne.
Okay. Well, they're doing curb cuts or curb ramps, sorry, out in the south part of Ashland on Siskiyou. And they're filling in some sidewalk and putting in sidewalk where there was a bus stop that was on gravel and all that. But Scott, the corner that I got the idea of what's going on all the other places. They're doing some sidewalk infill here and there, but there's a muddy path at the corner of Glendale and Siskiyou. And I don't know, I guess it's the north east corner if we pretend Siskiyou's north and south, because I'm not very good at thinking about it in any other way. There is a curb cut across Siskiyou that points to that muddy path. There's a curb cut from the bus stop on the other corner of Glendale that points across Glendale to that muddy path. And when I looked closer on the pictures, the plans, it says not necessary to do that sidewalk infill. Who decided it wasn't necessary and why? Because there's a sidewalk with a big step up that goes in front of the new condominiums towards Faith, all the way to Faith. But there's this, muddy path that goes from that sidewalk. It's probably mid-block. It goes the sidewalk all the way to the corner of Glendale. So there's two curb cuts to nowhere. Those curb cuts are useless because you can't get up on that muddy path, and you can't get up on the sidewalk if you're on that muddy path, and you can't even use a wheelchair on that muddy path. So I'm kind of concerned that they're going to go away and say, oh, we'll get to that in 5 years. So what can be done about it?
So from what I remember, and this goes back to I think the conversation when Jenna was with ODOT and presented a couple times, you know, the primary focus right now from ODOT is to meet the access requirements for ADA per the lawsuit. I know she was able to get a couple small sections of sidewalk connection into this project, but I think ODOT is looking at doing separate sidewalk connections outside of their ADA. They really are rushing to get the ADA ramps in to meet the lawsuit settlement deadline throughout the state. And then, I'm not, to be honest with you, totally sure of how they plan to, or if they plan to attack sidewalk connections. I haven't had a chance, Corinne, to drive out there and see. I know what you're talking about on that north corner, I believe, because there's no existing sidewalk. Yeah.
Right. But there are curb ramps to it that point to it, so it's not ADA compliant.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can't use that.
and I'm wondering, and I'll check with their team if they're actually going to post them. They're putting them in, and they might have a plan for sidewalk or continuous connection, or if they are going to post them as closed as part of it until they get a sidewalk connection in. So I'll check with ODOT on that and let you know.
Who's the project manager for that project? Is that Tom Roger?
Roger Tom, correct.
Roger Tom? His first
Yes.
name is Roger and his last name is Tom?
Yes, it's ROGERTHOM.
Oh, okay. Because, I don't understand it. It's not compliant. And, they're going to go away and they'll never come back.
Yeah. I will say that I was at the RVAC meeting 2 weeks ago, and they mentioned that ODOT is going to be receiving $50 million in funding for project improvements along state highway systems that run through urbanized corridors. This money is meant to go to projects to improve pedestrian facilities and bike facilities along those corridors to make them more urbanized as part of that. And it's meant to leverage existing projects and meant to leverage, disadvantaged communities and high density communities So as soon as I heard that, I talked to, or I sent a note to Jerry Marvin, who's now the ODOT area manager for Region 3, that, hey, you know, you guys have this going on out there. You have ADA improvements, you have the safe routes to school, you have the project identification program, you have the work at Bellevue, the work you're doing at Tolman. You have a lot of leverage that you could use to get a funding stream to, and I said, basically, you're looking at infill of sidewalk and some pedestrian scale lighting. You know, you could also look at potentially converting that section to a 3-lane section all the way out with the median center refuge lane, you know, the 2-way left-hand turn lane is part of that, because I believe there's enough right of way to do that and provide bike facilities and sidewalk on both sides. So I put that bug in his ear as part of that process for them to think about trying to go after that grant money for us, you know, and they'll be looking at Talent Phoenix corridor, Central Point corridor as well, potentially for some dollars, but I had to shoot my shot as fast as I could and get that bug in his ear. So we'll see, but
You're a wheelchair user, you have to go in the bike lane that whole block to get to the next street over.
connect in,
And that's
yeah.
not safe. Cars drive in that bike lane. And if they're gonna have a curb cut that doesn't go anywhere, what's the point?
Yeah.
So
Curb cut nowhere.
who's the RV Act person that you communicated with? Because Jenna was the person, right?
Yeah, Jenna's gone. I communicated with Jerry Marmon, who's the area manager for ODOT right now.
Okay.
Yeah, people, you know, think it's nice to have all that stuff, but it's not finished.
Right.
Plus, it's still really dangerous to cross that street, even if there's curb cuts, because there's no what do you call those? Marked crossings. Cars don't stop.
Right.
Well, Corinne, I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the questions I was going to ask if we had time was, what do you think of the improvements along Siskiyou as far as for you? And I was actually curious how you get across the street from Glendale if you wanted to get to the sidewalk, which is on the west side of Siskiyou. How do you do that?
It's risky. It really is. I know that, well, I'm going to get the contact people, but I was told through my network in the state that ODOT has more lights that they can do. Put a flasher at least at the bus stops, or put a crosswalk at least at the bus stops, so you can get from one side of Siskiyou to the other to get the bus or to get off the bus. Those are kind of important things for connectivity if we really want to have connectivity.
So farther north, are the improvements good enough, or are they still need some work?
They still need some work. It's a nice that they've gotten this far, but it still needs some more stuff. It needs that sidewalk infill, and we need some kind of safer way to cross Siskiyou that cars will pay attention. I stand there with a dog, 2 or 3 people, somebody with a cane, and cars just go by. It's frightening.
And I was noticing some of those new curb cuts go pretty far out in the road. And you're already out in the road on some of those curb cuts. So that's one of the things I was noticing that I was concerned about. That's why I wanted to talk about tonight. So I'm glad you're here.
Curb cuts are nice, but getting across to them is really difficult still. That hasn't changed. So I don't know who can I plead my case to? Jerry Marmon?
I would, yeah, I mean, I can talk to Jerry as part of that, either, and Roger as part of that, because I don't know what their phased plan approach is. I know that, let's see, we will,
It looks
they
nice.
are,
It looks all, yeah. Everybody says, oh, all the new concrete, that's so nice.
yeah.
But, yeah, that's nice. Now what? We need more. It's not
And I
enough.
think they will be marking a bunch of crosswalks along that corridor. I'm just not sure when they're going to do it. When I looked at the plans, I think they're supposed to, at least they show it on the plans, a marked crosswalk at Harmony, marked crosswalk at Park, marked crosswalk at Terra, marked crosswalk at Clay, and then all 4 legs of the Tolman Creek should be fully marked when they're done. I don't remember, well, I know Jenna tried to get a flashing beacon, but they didn't want to approve it as part of that in that area yet.
But a crosswalk to all the bus stops is pretty essential. If you're in a wheelchair, also, you're low. Cars don't see you. But if there's a crosswalk, they go, oh, there's a crosswalk. Maybe I should pay attention.
I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't have her contact the social justice and equity, racial social justice equity, because you have the apartments there at Siskiyou. What is it? The Ashlanders, which is low income housing. And part of it is on the other side of the street. And they have no easy access to the bus stop. It doesn't seem fair and equitable. I mean, shouldn't we be trying to protect all of our citizens of Ashland? Or excuse me, residents of Ashland? The same.
I think that they, they did this to fill a requirement, but that's all they did. They didn't think about what else, how important it is to go a little further, make it a little safer. They fulfilled their requirement. They put curb ramps in, and they have nice new concrete, and everybody's impressed. It looks so pretty. It's not easier to live with.
Well, and I tried, and I've been working with ODOT to try to get them to close the crosswalk on Main Street, just above Harvey's and Martoli's and Macaroni's. That crosses to the bank side because that is a horrible crossing location, because you have one just to the west of it that crosses to the corner. That's a lot safer. It's a 2-stage crossing. You cross that little island and then you cross Main Street. Whereas this one, you basically walk across all 3 lanes, and people are trying to merge and cross 2 lanes at that same location. And I know Region 3 requested that one be closed, but the state and Salem higher ups refused their request to close it, even upon my recommendation and city support. So I heard that if it exists and no one has been killed there and there's been no serious injuries, that they prefer that they remain as kind of a policy direction. And so what I have requested is as soon as they're done on both sides of the street there, that ODOT, Roger, and their group come out and stand there with me and watch how that functions. Because even with the curb bump outs, it's not going to do what they think it's going to do.
That's crossing North Main, like from the chocolate shop over to the plaza.
Just up the street from that, the next one, or this right up the street on the corner.
The other direction, towards the south.
Towards
Oh,
you, Corinne. Yeah, south,
yeah,
correct.
okay. Yeah, I don't use that either. It's scary.
Yeah.
There's been 2 pedestrians hit there, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's see, there was one in 2009, February 2009 at 7:47 in the morning, and one on January 6, 2014 at 9:21 in the morning.
And I saw Tuesday morning, 4 people almost hit at that location.
There's
Well,
where
I was the 3rd car in line trying to go straight. Another car went around the people trying to left to Oak. and people were blocked from view. And that car ran right in front of 4 pedestrians walking across to the City Hall side.
There's where our near miss data is gonna come in handy.
I would have filled out the report. Yeah.
Joe, you've been awfully quiet tonight. What do you got to say?
I don't think I have anything tonight. I'm just waiting to see the future of the commission.
Oh, yeah, are you gonna talk about that, Scott? Or did I miss that when I couldn't get in?
I haven't mentioned anything about it other than in the email I sent. I'm still kind of waiting a little bit of understanding. What we're talking about from the Management Advisory Committee portion of it and what it means for public meeting requirements, noticing. I don't have a full understanding of it, but I kind of chatted with Linda a little bit about it. And from my opinion, I don't think it changes the operation of how this group works, especially with me and Public Works. I think we do the same process, same kind of general actions that we normally do and handle. I will say honestly that we will probably, from my standpoint, tighten things up a little bit until I can get some staffing relief. With still no deputy position, and I'm down 2 more project managers, one for at least a temporary basis. And we're still trying to figure out the hiring process for a new project manager and a inspector. So we're a bit thin on my side.
You're the
And-
last man standing.
Yeah,
It is.
there's 3 of us managing all of the stuff right now. We had 2 project managers and myself, and then our support staff. Thankfully, Liz is here to help us out, and Tammy, and then my Mike Morrison, who used to be the superintendent and now the deputy director of operations. He's having to help facilitate me and help facilitate some stuff as a quasi project manager on top of managing all of the divisions. So yeah, we're trying to keep it all together and moving forward.
Well, Scott, I really appreciate all the work you do, and I'm sorry you have to put up with all that sludge.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to be a pain about all this, but
No.
I will take it up with ODOT, Scott, so it won't be on your deal.
No, I like poking the bear sometimes on the ODOT side as well. And I do
Yeah.
that. And I got to let them know where we stand. And they know that I'm still upset about that, the one crosswalk already. So, and I'm upset about the lack of colored concrete that they poured on Gilligan's Island. So we have some issues to resolve, but I have a good working relationship with a lot of those guys over there now. And so I'll poke the bear a little bit as well. And Corinne, you will too, I know.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
might
thank you.
point out that it does look pretty stupid to have curb cuts to nowhere. And I think it reflects poorly on the city, and it reflects poorly on the Transportation Commission, and probably not so poorly on ODOT, because most Ashland residents don't realize that we don't have much to do with it.
That's right.
And that came up in discussion last night. One of the questions was about the Tolman Creek intersection,
Mhm.
where we have 3 jurisdictions all meeting at one point in time and space.
Mhm.
And we control Siskiyou from what? Walker North?
Walker to Gresham.
But I think control is used loosely. I don't know how, we don't have control over everything on the road. We just have responsibility with no control, it feels like.
That section of Siskiyou, we're pretty well in control. After Walker out, ODOT runs the total show. Clay, from Clay Street on Ashland Street out, they run the show. And then on the couplet out to the railroad trestle, they run the show.
Even
Well-
having a crosswalk at Clay, it's not gonna help getting to the bus stop between Clay and Glendale because there's a big ditch along there. So you're still walking in the bike lane. And if you're walking that way, your dog is on the street side. That's a no-no for guide dogs. They don't teach them to do that because they're little and they get hit more easily. They don't care if you get hit, but you're taller and I guess you stand out. So, you know, saying that the crosswalk at Clay is good enough, it's not good enough.
Yeah, I'm surprised, honestly, that they don't have one at Glendale that connects right across to the new sidewalk and the bus stop. And
Yeah.
I'll mention that one. And I think even Edam can, from the RVTD side, or Mike can make reference to that they think it would accommodate safer crossing to the bus stop area because they've done all that work there to create the connection to the bus stop itself.
Yeah. There's a lot of big ditches along there, but I guess that's something we put up with and learn to deal with. But the crossing of Siskiyou is dangerous. And I don't want to be the one that gets hit so that somebody does something about it.
Yeah.
You know, Scott, when they can
Yeah.
have three flashers in front of the college to accommodate college students, and we need some out here.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why.
it.
That's one of the reasons why I was trying to ask Corinne those questions is I see that ditch every time I drive by your house, by your street, Corinne. And I just feel that is a freaking hazard for Corinne all day long because I look at that and going, what happens if she doesn't know exactly where you're at and you go to cross? And that's why I was wanting you to talk tonight about it because I struggle looking at that and looking at you and going, how do you manage that without getting killed?
Well, I don't go across there very often. Sometimes I'll go miles out of my way to cross. Okay, the typical way is to go down go down Faith, go up 66 to Walker, walk up Walker where there's a light, and then you can cross easily on that light to the other side of the boulevard. That's a long ways around the merry-go-round to do that. And that's if I don't take the bus.
Mm.
So anyway,
That
it
is
looks
a long.
Oh, it's right. It just looks unfinished. If kind of spoils the whole nice thing.
Yeah.
This is Adam with RVTD. Yeah, we don't like to pick up or drop people off in an area that's unsafe for them. Obviously, some areas have better options than others, but yeah, we certainly don't like to drop people off where there's not safe crossing options or safe options to get where they're trying to get to. But
Well, they've certainly improved that bus stop, though. It used
Yeah.
to be that big pile of gravel, so that's nice. But we still need. It can't be left like that. There's still a little bit of finish-up work to do to make it all flow. If we're all into modal, multimodal, then they need to finish it up and put some crosswalks.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out there next week and snap some pictures.
Okay, I have some too. I was gonna email you.
Yeah, that would be
You can
perfect.
do it too. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like, why does it say not necessary? What's not necessary about it, and who said that? on the thing from Jenna, underneath I think it's mile marker 45 or milepost 45. If you look at that picture, someone read it to me and it said underneath in little print, not necessary. So that told me they're not going to do it, because I kept hoping, well, maybe they'll do it, maybe they'll do it. But I don't think so.
I think I remember Jenna saying that there was something within the plan, but not now. It wasn't going to happen now. There was going to be some kind of development later on for that.
They have the people out there now doing other things. Why not just do it?
I know.
You know, and then I heard too Jenna say there was going to be a crosswalk at Glendale. Well, crosswalk to cross Glendale is kind of ridiculous. There's not enough traffic on there to have a crosswalk. They're going to put a crosswalk across Mary Jane. There's not enough traffic on there to, you know, be all excited about putting a crosswalk there. We need crosswalks across Siskiyou. Okay, I made my point, maybe.
Point well taken. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll get everybody to help when I get that far. And I'll send you what I have, Scott.
Good deal.
So if I look at this correctly, Scott, and you can help me out here, looks like the only marked crossing is at Harmony and Tolman.
They might have a single line crosswalk at Clay that might have worn out. I thought they did one at Clay, but it was not a continental stripe crossing. It was just the 12-inch white, but it might not even be there anymore.
And
I
by the
think
way,
they're going to refresh that one.
the one on Tolman Creek's only on the south side.
Yeah, and all 4 legs of that intersection will be marked crosswalk when they're done.
Just like
Okay.
to go to the crosswalk at Terra, they're supposed to put a crosswalk at Terra and one at Park. Those streets are really close together. You know, do they need to that close together? Because if you're going to walk up to Terra to cross in a crosswalk, then you're walking in the street again because that little chunk of sidewalk's not finished.
Yeah.
So, I'll get my little email together and the pictures, and maybe I'll send it out to everybody.
That'd be great. I'd like to see it. Maybe we can all comment on it.
Yeah, I know we have no clout with ODOT, but
Well, somebody needs to poke the bear all the time besides Scott, you know.
yeah.
And
I don't want to put more on Scott, but
on Google Street Views, believe it or not, there is somebody walking in the middle of Siskiyou between Tara and Faith. Yeah. By the way, Scott, it is there at Clay Street. It is very dull.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why on those, especially when you're looking at a higher order crossing improvement, that you put the continental markings in there, so they're actually visible. And then as in mid-block locations and things like that, you know, as we've done, is add the stop here for pedestrians and the signage, and then the stop bars, you know, 20, 25 feet back from the actual crossing location, so vehicles have a marker and nowhere to stop.
I might want to send it out in the flyers for the monthly bills, what that marker means.
It's state law.
Yeah, that's what I tell people, that, you know, pedestrians walking out there and the cars aren't stopping. I said, they can't hit you. It's against the law, you know, keep going.
but it still hurts.
I know, I know.
You can be right, dead right.
That's right. Often the problem. Anyway,
Well,
Well,
I've
it's-
talked to people, I've talked to drivers, and they said that if they see a crosswalk, it kind of moves their brain to look for a pedestrian. Otherwise, they don't even look to the side to see if someone wants to cross.
yeah, yeah.
Who was the professor we had?
Tackle,
Mosey.
yeah, Tackaloo.
The guy who was sitting there saying that actually marked crosswalks are more dangerous for pedestrians than unmarked crosswalks because the pedestrians will pay attention more on unmarked crosswalks than they will on marked crosswalks.
I remember that, yeah,
That one really boggled my mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, then
and
you take your own responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, there's been some back and forth about that over years and years and years. And it does come down to paying attention, either direction, vehicular or pedestrian, because there's guidance from NACDO that says, putting a crosswalk on a low volume residential street has no fundamental bearing, safety improvement, or lack of safety. It doesn't directionally shift safety in either direction. So that's why they generally recommend if you want to put a crosswalk in on a low volume residential street, it's fine to do, but it's not going to swing the needle one direction or the other. Interesting. As my counterpart says, the internet where you can find any opinion to validate your own.
Yeah.
Well, if we have no more further topics, we can call an end to our informal practice session. Paula,
Let
thank you for
Linda get some
coming.
rest.
I just want to say, don't get discouraged. We'll get this all figured out, and we'll be back in strength, or normal strength yet again.
So we won't have to be approved by the council if we become an advisory committee?
We don't know how it's going to happen. I don't think Joe has put his resolution out for how it's going to get established. So we're waiting for that. We're waiting for the resolution. And I think it's on the agenda for August 2nd. But the way things have been moving around on the agenda, it might not happen then either. And I don't think appointments would be made then either. So Paula will keep us posted, I'm sure.
Okay.
It would be
Thank you,
nice in a
Linda.
city where everybody wants to be involved and everybody wants to have input, to have somebody talk to us. And to actually hear some rationale directly from a person, or maybe somebody can point me to a document that I should read in order to understand all the rationale for why some commissions are commissions and some commissions are going to be management advisory committees, and what the value added is of all this. Can't save any money because it's going to eat up the same amount of staff time unless we don't meet very much.
Yeah.
And if we don't meet very much, what does that mean?
It means that
So-
it means that public engagement is lessened, that the amount of
Well,
public
but
participation in the whole process is lessened. That's what it
well,
is.
I haven't seen a whole lot of public engagement in this process, even engagement with the commissions. So again, I don't know if there's a document floating out there that's actually public, in the public record. Is it in some of the commission minutes or agendas, or is all this just word of mouth?
The initial discussion can be found in the packets of the special meetings from the 23rd and the 24th of May. But beyond, I also am waiting for the additional information to come forward from city administrator. I mean, the city manager, my apologies, old habits.
And I don't think that in those meetings, all of the, I think he took counselors' opinions on it, but I don't think all of those opinions were posted as part of the report. I could.
Well, it would be,
He basically
would be interesting.
consolidated it.
yeah, it would be interesting to know, just for the purposes of deciding whether to continue. You know, what's the difference in the in the functioning of the management advisory committee versus a commission, and also why some commissions are raised up to be commissions. Besides the planning commission, I'm not sure that I see that much reason, except maybe somebody is supporting certain other commissions. So it'd be nice to know that, to know how valued or unvalued your work is by the city council. Just a thought.
Are we that much?
Maybe
of
I'm
a
the only one
trouble
who feels
spot?
that way.
No, I think you're right.
No, we all do. Yeah. Scott, are we that much trouble?
Every month.
Yeah.
Unless we get on our high horse about sidewalks.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. Our relationship with staff is different. If you go back, you know, to other meetings where staff asks us for help in deciding on what programs and stuff dealing with traffic are involved. So.
Yeah, like I said, my intent, no matter what happens, is the process in my mind remains generally the same with the group, because you guys are my connection to the citizenry, but you're also that buffer, and you also provide me that input and develop that process. So that overall, that's still my philosophy and intent, to utilize this group, your knowledge, your expertise, and your ability to communicate and obtain input from the community. You are ex officio staff members, I will say, as part of the transportation process when I need ex officio staff members.
You can count on us, Scott, and we really appreciate it.
Well, I will say I've been on both. I've been on this commission and I've been on some of these management advisory committees. And there isn't a fundamental difference between the functioning. It's just that one of the management advisory committees that I think I'm still on hasn't met in about a year. It's kind of a funny feeling to be downgraded. Maybe somebody's going to find a nice way to tell us we're not downgraded, but it feels that way. So that's all I have to say.
I appreciate hearing that from you, Joe, because I feel kind of the same way, but I didn't want to sound like a pompous person there going, do they not value us, or why is it? So I kind of appreciate that. And I did kind of laugh that when the gentleman said that there shows 9 spots on the commission, I went to the city's website and it says our next meeting is February 16th, 2023. So I think the city just sent us a loud and clear message that we're obviously not that important if our next meeting is February 16th of next year. I'm saying that sarcastically or parodizing it, but it does say that as our next meeting is February 16th, 23.
That's weird. I know Liz will resolve that.
Oh, I don't want to do more work for Liz. I don't want that to be the case or whatever. I just thought it was rather ironic.
That would be a weird skip in time. Okay.
And with that, I think we could probably call it an evening unless anybody feels otherwise and wants to keep talking. Thank
Can I
you,
have one
Joe.
more question, Scott?
Oh, Corinne,
Yeah,
Yep.
I have one more question about the roundabout things. Is there a way that I could find out what they're gonna actually look like and how that's gonna impact walking along Faith Street to get to 66?
Yeah, so just real
I
quick,
have no
we'll talk.
idea what it's gonna look like. It doesn't-
Yeah,
I can't get.
Traffic circle, and when it's finally constructed, is a basically low profile concrete curb in the middle of the roadway, and it's a certain diameter. So it's not meant to impact any pedestrian leg around the intersection. It's just meant to be something in the middle of the roadway that vehicles see and they slow down to go slightly around it.
Okay.
I'll send
So
you,
they
I'll
won't
send
go
you a good
closer.
description of it, Corinne.
Okay. Or even if you have a picture, I can have someone draw it for me, raise
Yep.
it.
Yeah, I got a bunch of photos.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember teaching cane travel in San Francisco, and the circles they have there are outrageously ridiculous. The traffic's going really fast. You can't cross. There's no way to cross stuff there easily. So,
These aren't that big. They're
no, there's not enough room for them.
right.
But when
yeah,
someone talks about them, I start getting worried
nervous.
because I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Hey,
We
we
could-
love listening to you because you have valuable insight the rest of us don't have.
We couldn't do it without you.
I think we're all like that. Joe, don't you quit. We need you.
He can't quit. Yeah. Scott can't quit either.
Oh, she's got 2 more years, so she can't quit either.
That's right.
Oh.
Okay.
With that,
Thank
thank you,
you.
everybody, for coming this evening for an informal meeting. I do appreciate everybody showing up, and we'll see you next month, hopefully.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
Thanks,
you.
Mark,
Thank
for
you.
keeping us all under control.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy tonight.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.